Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman. I'm here with Gene Marks to talk about the stories and issues we think business owners should be following this week. Welcome, Gene.
Hey, Lauren. Seems like it's been a while.
It has. Great to have you back.
Yes.
Gene, as usual, you've been writing and talking about issues that matter to business owners. I want to start with the new law in California that you've been writing or talking about actually on a podcast that subjects the fast food industry to an array of new regulations. Before we get into the details and what you think of it, let me just start by asking you this. Is there any reason that business owners who are not in California should care about this new law?
Yeah, they should, because if the new law turns into something good, it could easily spread. In fact, there are other states that are taking a very close look at what this law is. So let's just step back a little bit, right? So this was signed into law by Governor Newsom on Labor Day, and it targets just the fast food industry. It creates a committee of people that are appointed, I think mostly by the governor. And it's mostly, it's a proportional committee that has representatives from employers in the industry, employees in the industry, and some lawmakers as well, some government officials. And the committee itself is being given wide authority to make rules for the industry. Safety rules, health rules, and of course, what's gotten the attention is wage rules. The committee can actually increase the minimum wage in that industry if they vote to do that, up to as much as $22 and change an hour. So, like, a lot of people were up in arms about it. The CEO of McDonald's was on CNBC saying like, "Oh, this targets big franchise, big fast food companies." And then you've got like small business owners who are independent franchisers. They're complaining about it because they're saying it's going to increase our costs if this committee says we have to raise our minimum wage. And then you've got consumer advocates that are saying, "Oh my God, if they increase the minimum wage, it's going to increase prices for everybody." And then you've got labor people that say that once the fast food industry increases their minimum wage to $22 an hour, then what are other industries going to do, right? That hire the same pool of workers, they're going to have to increase wages to be competitive. So there's all that.
Just on that one point, it's there's no guarantee they're going to increase the minimum wage to 20. They just have the option to increase it if they find it necessary, right?
Yeah, and most people I talk to feel that it's pretty likely that the minimum wage, they're going to increase it, we don't know that still. But what intrigues me about this is, and I'm going to write about this too, Lauren, because, and me, man, like I'm I'm a Republican, like keep the government as far away and, blah, blah, blah. But I got to tell you, we have to always keep our minds open to new models of doing business. Okay. And instead of, most industries in this country now pretty much self-regulates, unless it's a real industry like healthcare, financial services that could harm, So the government leads them up to self-regulating. And is that the best model? I mean, it might be, but this Governor Newsom is trying out for the fast food industry. And the position is, hey, you know what? Instead of just letting the industry self-regulate, then they have to lobby lawmakers, and, the big businesses always step on the small businesses when that happens. Why not have an independent committee that's made up of the key players in the industry, employers, employees, and a few lawmakers? And then that committee decides what's best for the industry. And whatever the committee says, that's what the law will be, And I don't know. I mean, I'm like, it might not be a bad idea if everybody has skin in the game.
My mouth is hanging open,
I know.
Gene.
I know. Well, it's not like the government is telling it's not like they're like over regulating the industry and saying, "Oh, you have to raise your wage to $22 an hour," for example. If this committee, which is made up of both employers and employees and government officials, decide to raise, think that it's better for the industry to raise the wages, then I think I would trust that more than just like lawmakers deciding, who might not even have any clue what the industry is about. And that goes for safety and healthcare and health and wellness as well. Do you know what I mean? So
safety is a big part of this,
yes,
right? This comes out of the pandemic and concern that employers in the fast food industry in California were not overly concerned with the health of their employees during the pandemic.
And this whole thing is like people are saying, oh, this is, again, it's the Democrats knew some pro-worker, whatever. And maybe there's some of that. But I mean, if in the end it makes the industry better for all involved, more attractive to workers, as well as, more attractive for, better for employers. There's that. And if they set a wage in the industry, doesn't that kind of level the playing field for small businesses, smaller franchisors? Because they're like, hey, we don't have to have a discussion about wages anymore. This is what it is. And the committee decided this, not some lawmaker, but a committee did this. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we all have a deep-seated fear of committees, and for good reason. But I hear you. I wonder. I'd love to know what one chain in particular thinks about this. Are you familiar with In-N-Out Burger?
Yeah, I am. I don't get it, though. I don't get it. I've had an In-N-Out Burger. It's good. Everybody makes such a big deal. You go to LA.
I've never had one.
Yeah, it's fine. It's good.
And I'm less interested in it as food and more interested in it as a business model, because they are famous for paying their people really well and running their restaurants very differently from most other chains. And I would love to know what their reaction is to this new law.
I agree. It's an interesting.
My suspicion is that it won't have much of an impact on them.
Who knows? Now, will this increase prices for consumers if wages go up? Yeah. I mean, will it motivate more of these, fast food chains to automate and get more technology to replace workers? Maybe.
I think they're already motivated.
They're already
to do
doing that. Yeah, they're already doing that. So, here's the thing. I don't think anybody knows. That's the one thing I've learned over living on this earth for 57 years is that no one knows shit. So they're going to try. This is an interesting little model to try out in California in the fast food industry, and I'm curious to see what happens over the next few years. I realize I don't have any skin in the game because I'm not a franchiser, so I guess they're the guinea pigs. But I don't know. It could be an interesting model for other industries as well. A joint type of regulation between both, lawmakers, employers, and employees. It'd be interesting.
You just scared the hell out of any business owner listening to this.
Pigs flying.
All right. Well, this will be fun to watch. Do you have any sense of when this is going to kick into gear and when we may begin to see some?
Oh, it's law now. So I think we'll start seeing the effects of it in 2023. And I can guarantee you that there'll be a bunch of screaming and yelling when minimum wages go up, because that's going to happen. It's going to happen.
Do you think, is that the major issue?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah, that's the big issue. I mean, I think there's pretty much overall agreement between health and safety of workers and all that, for goodness sake. But you're going to see people scream and yell when they raise wages, from $15 to $20 an hour. Oh my God. So that'll be interesting to see.
Interesting. All right. Next topic, also talking about the treatment of employees. You recently wrote, I don't know what's going on with you, Gene. You're going soft in your middle age. You recently wrote that it would be smart for business owners to offer paid parental leave.
What's going on?
Listen, what happened to you?
Listen, parental leave continues to come very high among requested benefits for employees, and there's been this. There's now a trend. There was a study done by, I think, the Society of Human Resource Management, that some big employers are pulling back now on paid parental leave. They're not offering the benefit as much or as high a benefit, both for mothers and fathers, for paternal leave.
That's surprising. Do you know what's driving that?
Yeah, costs. Just straight out.
Okay.
Straight out. It was just becoming
But at a time when there's a labor shortage and everybody's competing desperately, it seems kind of counterintuitive.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess these big employers are trying to they're juggling what benefits to provide and what just doesn't seem sustainable. But parental leave is a big issue. And I'm saying to my clients, first of all, there's a few ways you can go about this parental leave thing if you're a small business. I mean, for starters, even just offering some counseling, like having your accountant be available for your employees to make sure that your employees are fully versed on how to take advantage of the child care credit for if they're getting help looking after their children. A lot of people I meet don't really know their way around that, and they're not taking fully advantage of it. So that's a basic thing you can do. I do have some small businesses. I mean, if you run a small business and you set up a flexible spending account, you can contribute up to like $5,000, pre-tax to the employee. You get a deduction, and the employee can take that money and use it for parental leave costs. So there's that as well. You don't have to do the whole 5,000 per employee, maybe 500 or 1,000, but any little bit would help. And then finally, the Family and Medical Leave Act. There's an expansion of that from the 2017 tax reform. If you got to give them 12 weeks off if you've got more than 50 employees. But for any size business, if you give them unpaid leave, but you pay 50% of their salary or more, you can get tax credits to help you offset some of that cost. So the government is providing some assistance, both to your employees and to employers to help with parental leave. And I'm just saying it's a big, it could be a great benefit that could make the difference between losing that prospective employee or current employee, or retaining them.
Especially at a time when larger employers are cutting back.
Yeah. And the other thing is about parental leave, if you're running a small business, I mean, you can be flexible about it because you're a small business, and so, I just think to leverage that, I think is a potential asset for a small business. And like I said, it's a very popular benefit.
In the column you wrote about this, Gene, you raised some really fascinating questions. You didn't give the answers necessarily. I'm curious if you have answers to them. One is, you just raised the question, is it biased for a business to offer paid leave to new parents? Think about that. People who don't or can't have children feel about seeing that? Yeah.
I mean, it's people that don't or can't have children. Now these people are getting paid leave off just because they're able to have a kid. I mean, that's a little tricky. Or how about people that are like, have worked for you for 10, 20 years, maybe their kids are grown. They didn't get any paid parental leave benefits. And now suddenly you're giving the younger workers parental leave, is that fair? And even like paternal fathers and mothers, is there a bias between offering it to them as well? That's why it's a tricky issue. It really is. So I don't have answers to that. Those are tricky issues.
Let me know if you get them. Here's another one you raised. Is it fair to tell a new mother or father that you need them to be responsible for at least some of their work duties from home now that we know remote working is a valid option? That's a great question.
It really is. And again, if you're a small business, say you've got 10 employees or 20 employees and one person goes out on parental leave, it's a big deal. So I don't know, are you being a dick by saying to that employee, listen, can you put in a couple hours a day or something? I know you have a newborn, but
people don't think about it unless you own a business from that perspective very often. If you're obligated to keep this job open, you don't always know for sure that the parent is going to come back.
Right.
So you can go a long time waiting for someone and then find out, well, that's actually not going to happen. And that's not necessarily because, the employee is committing some kind of fraud or something. You don't always know the way these things are going to go.
Yeah, you really don't.
And that's just the way it works. But it can be very difficult for a business owner who, doesn't have a big staff.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess it just comes down to the relationship you have with your employees. And it's a good measure to see how committed the employee is to you, how much they care about you and your business, as well as how much you care about them. And, there's a lot of people talk about being exploited as employees. And, the vast majority of small businesses that I talk to, their employees are treated well by their employers. And there's a good back and forth relationship, So hopefully, that's the case for, if that's the case for your business, maybe you can work something out with that employee to, keep
that flexibility you mentioned. I think that's a great point. Next topic, you recently wrote that Salesforce has come out with a less expensive customer relations management option aimed specifically at small businesses. Salesforce, of course, is kind of the gold standard when it comes to most CRM, but in a piece you wrote, you kind of warn against it, and you did it with a very good line that I'm going to quote. You wrote that buying a CRM system that targets small businesses from Salesforce would be, quote, like buying a salad at McDonald's. They offer it, but you know it's not the restaurant chain's main focus. That's well said and an interesting point. Tell us more about Salesforce's
Who is buying a salad at McDonald's, for starters? For God's sake, I go to McDonald's like 3 times a year, 2 times a year, and it's all Big Mac with a chaser, side order of cheeseburgers. No salads. So, Salesforce, okay, for starters, Salesforce, fantastic application. They're like the BMW of CRMs. They're great. I mean, their stock ticker says CRM, that's how, right? But they don't give a shit about small businesses. I mean, they offer the small business version because it's like a carrot to try and attract a small business that maybe can turn into a bigger business and really make them money. But Salesforce, their core business is selling to enterprise-sized companies. And as you know, Lauren, I mean, we implement Salesforce. I've got about 30 Salesforce clients, and they're all giant companies, like J&J and DuPont, for example. So, but smaller companies, Salesforce is not positioned in the way. They're not organized well enough to go after and support small businesses. I mean, small business owners, we are lunatics, We're calling at all hours of the night. We expect the same kind of service as if we're running a $1 billion company. You know what I mean? We're impatient. We're arrogant. It's all me. I'm that way. But Salesforce doesn't have a support infrastructure, to handle that. And when there's so many other better, more affordable CRMs that are geared towards small and mid-sized businesses. And one other thing, Jesus, when you're running a small business, come on, you don't need the space shuttle when it comes to a CRM system. Most of the mainstream CRMs out there are fine for you. I just think it's a waste to go down the road of Salesforce. You're going to be disappointed.
Is it a bad product or is it just the service?
It's not a bad product. It's just lacking in a lot of the features that you can get for the same price or less with some of the mid-market CRMs. So
Gotcha.
That's the biggest difference. And as far as the service is concerned, again, if this is a company that, they sell their products and have companies like McKinsey and Ernst & Young and PwC implement them. So they're not interested in small, but they're not going to their shareholder meetings and talking about that they just sold their, CRM to the Marks Group. They could care less. You know what I mean? So it's just, you want to go with companies that focus on on the type of business that you have, the size of the business.
You want that Big Mac.
Yeah, you want that Big Mac, not the salad. For goodness sake.
All right. Last topic for today. The Wall Street Journal recently ran a piece about manufacturers who have made the dramatic shift from being short of inventory to having a glut of inventory. We've been hearing a good bit about this for a while, but they singled out Scotts Miracle-Gro in particular, and they quoted the company's CEO who told the Journal, "I love working, but this isn't exactly the shithole I was planning to live in toward the end of my career, working my way out of a goddamn latrine. But that's what it is, and that's where I am." Pretty stark terms. I'm curious. Obviously,
Love
that's a
that
very
guy.
big company. We know about the problems with inventory and how it happened. But are you hearing this from your clients? You have a pretty good feel of what's out there. What are smaller businesses?
I'm hearing that, and I'm hearing the opposite, and then I'm hearing that, and I'm hearing the opposite. In other words, I was with a client today, and they're trying to get supply from some of their key suppliers. The key suppliers don't have any inventory. And then I was speaking to another client earlier this week who had the exact opposite problem, was sitting on too much inventory because COVID fucked everything up. So whatever systems you put into place and whatever, ordering you were doing to meet demand, you had some bit of consistency, some bit of regularity. All of that got turned on its head because of COVID. So it's just all over the place. And it is amazing, Lauren, how, we knew it But I don't think even any of us really appreciated, I mean, just the extent of the pandemic and the disruption. We shut down the world's largest economies. And when you do that, the supply chain, the inflation, the inventory issues, it's just rocked the world. And it's all these inventory issues that this guy, Miracle Grow, is having right now. They're not going to go away anytime soon. He's going to have this headache for the next year or two, all because of the pandemic, which is amazing.
And what does it say to you about the outlook for the kinds of businesses that you work with in the next, 3 months or more?
I'm going to write a piece very soon, either for the Washington Times or the Hill. And it's a negative piece on, I think 2023 is going to be a rough year for a lot of businesses, particularly small and mid-sized businesses. I think that, right now there's some reports about confidence being okay, but still low from the NFIB. I think that's going to go down.
That came out before the latest inflation report and before mortgage rates topped 6%.
We're going to have high interest next year. We're going to continue to have stubborn inflation next year. I don't care what people are predicting about these elections. It's going to be another stalemate in Washington. There's going to continue to be labor shortages because I don't care how many people Governor DeSantis flies to Martha's Vineyard. We're still going to have issues with immigration and labor shortages. Some businesses are going to face, there's more labor regulations coming on the horizon, overtime rules and independent contractor rules. Energy prices are going to be super volatile. God knows what's going to happen this winter in Europe and, with Ukraine, if, Putin continues to have setbacks. It's going to be a tough year next year for a lot of businesses. Having said that, not catastrophic, not like a bubbles that cause, violent swings like we saw in 2009. But next year's going to be a rough year. There's no doubt about it.
You said you see the labor shortage continuing. I mean, could that continue through a recession? That seems contradictory.
I think you're right. I think the recession itself is going to help. But that's the other thing that like I said, because it's not catastrophic. I was at the client I was at today. We had like a 2-hour meeting about people that they want to hire. Like they're looking for a director of manufacturing and a director of HR. I'm seeing, a lot of my clients still looking for people. No matter how slow things might get next year or challenging, companies that have been around for a bit, the companies I serve, at least the B2B companies, family-owned companies, my smartest clients are like looking ahead. They know that 2023 is going to be rough, but they also know things are cyclical no matter who sits in the White House. So they are looking ahead at 2024, 2025. And I think they're still going to be looking around for good skilled employees. There's always going to be demand for that. And there's never going to be enough supply. So I think that's going to continue into next year.
And everybody's fought so hard to get the staff they have.
Yeah, they don't want to lose
at this point.
Yep, that's right.
Gene Marks is a CPA who writes weekly on small business for The Guardian, The Hill, The Philadelphia Inquirer, The Washington Times, Forbes, and Entrepreneur. You can also hear him on ABC Radio's Eye on the World with John Batchelor. Gene hosts 2 small business podcasts with Paychex Corporation and The Hartford. Thank you, Gene.
Lauren, thank you. We'll see you next week.
Always a pleasure. Have a great week, everyone. We will follow up on these stories as they progress. Thanks.